Welcome everyone, welcome to the Wellbeing Pod. And this episode is going to be a different one. So we're going to talk about sexual and reproductive health. And for that, we have with us the UNFPA. Priscilla Li Ying is with us, and our very own alumni, Precious Apollo is with us as well. So without further ado, I'll leave the floor to Priscilla so that you can give us a brief introduction of who you are and what you do.
Sure, thanks. I'm Priscilla. I'm currently the head of office for UNFPA, and I'm covering Mauritius and Seychelles. So I've only recently that I took office, so last June 2022. So it's quite new for me. And apart from that, I've been working with the UN since 2011. I actually started my career with UN after deciding whether I wanted to pursue medical studies, and then went into economics, and then I thought economics not my thing, so I went into social development, and I really liked the work that I was doing, that I started doing with UN Habitat. That's where I started. And I think there I worked a lot with young people and women, so I supported a lot of youth-led initiatives and women-led initiatives, and I think out of this a passion grew for program management, but more so in this core belief that investing in youth and women is super important if we want things to progress. And I think when it comes to my own, for example, belief around this investing in youth and women, it stems a lot from my own personal experience. As a young person myself back then, I felt like a bit lost, and I wish that there was a little more guidance about what I could do with my life, what are the things that matter to me. I think the questions of what mattered to me back then was really important, and it took me a while to find it, but I'm glad I found it. And I think as a woman also, a lot of my personal experience informed the way that I see what an empowered woman should be, and really fighting for the rights, a voice for women. So yeah, in a nutshell, I think that captures who I am.
Okay, that's quite impressive actually, and such a beautiful journey that you've had to kind of find what is it that you want to do, like contribute. So I think this session is going to be inspirational for our students as well. We will talk about that as well, how a little bit tips of how to find your call if you want to really, if you're questioning basically what you want to do later. Okay, so we'll dive right into it.
Let's go.
Yeah. Just Precious, if you want to give us a little, just saying hello, maybe to our students. Yeah.
Well, wow, this is unexpected. But my name is Precious Apollo, and I graduated from Middlesex. I studied business management and I specialized in marketing. And now I'm working as a media and communications intern at the UNFPA Mauritius and Seychelles. And frankly speaking, I feel like what I did in my undergraduate, from working hard to get the best degree I could get and doing other internships and small courses, has brought me where I am right now. And also my passion to work with women, and also being a feminist, focusing on gender equality, has helped me push forward with my work with the UNFPA.
Awesome. Thank you.
She's great.
That's awesome. Okay, so if you were to give us a brief introduction of what does the UNFPA does as work, how would you describe this?
Yeah, maybe I'll start by defining UNFPA, because we always hear UNFPA and it can be obscure. Like, it was quite obscure for Precious, so I can only imagine what it must be for people who have never ever seen or heard of UNFPA. So UNFPA is the United Nations Population Fund, and it is most commonly or most often referred to as the United Nations Sexual and Reproductive Health Agency. Now, whether that is sexy or not, I don't know. It's kind of like weird to say like we're the Sexual and Reproductive Health Agency, but that's what we do. That's like our core mandate. And really our goal at UNFPA is to ensure that to ensure reproductive rights for all. And to accomplish this, here UNFPA, we really work to ensure that all people, and especially women and young people, are able to access high quality sexual and reproductive health services, including voluntary family planning, so that they can make informed and voluntary choices about their sexual and reproductive lives. So, and the UNFPA is not such a new agency. It exists since 1969. It was functioning under the appellation United Nations Fund for Population Activities, and later it was renamed as the United Nations Population Fund, but we retained the original abbreviation, that's the UNFPA.
Okay. And so today our topic is sexual and reproductive health, right? And it's an area which isn't really spoken about as much as it should be. And it's something that actually concerns a lot of us, a big chunk of the population, but we don't address it enough. So as a starting point, how would you describe it? How would you describe sexual and reproductive health?
Maybe I think I would like to ask Precious what she thought was reproductive health, like when she, like when you think of reproductive health as a young person, what comes to your mind?
Okay, so before the UNFPA, reproductive health was actually, reproductive health was just like, okay, my uterus is fine, my organs are fine, they're fully functioning, I have a period, it happens monthly, and that's it. Like, that is reproductive health. Like, we have functioning genitalia and that's it. But the more I got to know, the more I started working with the UNFPA, the more I started to learn. This has been a complete learning process for me. And I learned that sexual and reproductive health is way more than that. It goes down to consent. It goes down to voluntary family planning, what you prefer using. Is this what you want for yourself? Like, it's so deep. It's so deep, and it's so vast that it's hard to cover it in just one sitting. And one thing which I learned and noticed is that, I am that friend who's like, the one who knows it all. But if I didn't know anything, then where is everyone else? Because funny enough, I'm that person who now tells my friends about the things I learn at work. And they're just like, really? And I'm just like, yeah, I also didn't know. But yeah, sexual reproductive health is a vast topic which covers different things which involve our bodies, consent, our sexualities, equality, our partners, ourselves, how we feel about ourselves and our bodies. And I believe it's something that we should take more seriously and stop undermining the importance it is in our lives.
Yeah, so I think that sums up quite well what should be known about reproductive health, but what is not known. And if we want to be a little bit more technical and more factual, so reproductive health can be defined as a state of well-being related to one's sexual and reproductive life. It does imply that people are able to have a satisfying and safe sex life, and that they have the capability to reproduce and the freedom to decide if, when, and how often they want to do so. And then, so by this definition, reproductive health encompasses sexual health, which in medical terms often connotes the absence of sexually transmitted infections. But the term sexual and reproductive health is generally used by us, UNFPA and others, as a way to emphasize that people have a right to a safe and satisfying sex life and appropriate health services independent of their reproductive status. So it's not just a woman who has to have access, because we often think like it's a woman issue, but it's really not just. It's also the men, it's also people who decide to not have children. It's and it's at any age really. So yeah.
This is so enlightening. I think I wasn't aware, that it went such in depth and explored such different areas. So I'm sure at the end of this session, all of us will be better informed and to make better decisions as well.
Yeah, I hope.
Definitely. Okay. So in terms of the role sexual and reproductive health plays on an individual's physical, mental, And emotional well-being, what would you say it is?
Interesting question. So again, I think there's this misconception that sexual and reproductive health is only about physical well-being and then more closely associated to your reproductive organs. But really, it is important for everyone. And it is not only about physical well-being because it includes this, this inherent right to healthy relationships, and healthy relationships is not just physical, they are not just physical, they're also emotional. It requires you being mentally there, emotionally prepared. So the access to reliable information and the freedom from coercion, violence, stigma, and discrimination, and gaining and having the confidence, for example, to talk openly and learning more about safer sex practices can help you take charge of not only your own, but also of someone else's sexual health. And I think like sexual and reproductive health, it has a big role in our life because it is important across our life course. It's not just when you're an adolescent or when you've as a woman decided that you want to have it during your reproductive phase. It goes throughout your life. So good sexual and reproductive health really involves gender equality. It involves respect and safety, which impacts our emotional and mental well-being. But the sexual and reproductive health is critically influenced by power dynamics, gender norms and expectations, and it is often expressed through diverse sexualities. And that is a core part of this whole, this whole new discussion around emotional and mental well-being, is the diverse sexualities that one can have. Maybe to exemplify what I mean when I say, it is influenced by power dynamics, gender norms and expectation. For example, the father who decides that his underage daughter is fit for marriage at 16, or the mother who asks her son that it is time that he gives her a grandchild, and the son who in turn then pressures the wife to bear a child. And then we're also talking, for example, about the man who built himself this very macho character and acts likewise because he is in the closet and cannot really express his sexual identity, or the young girl who is confused about her feelings for a boy because she was told that girls need to like boys, but she is in fact attracted to her girlfriend. So all these are the examples of such influences when we talk about our dynamics and such social expectations and how they impact on your sexual and reproductive health.
And a little question about this. Working in Mauritius for this long, have you noticed that we do have those challenges a bit more here in terms of, different diverse sexualities, power dynamics? Is it a bit more in our culture?
I don't know if it's more, but it is definitely present. I would say that traditionally Mauritius is still quite very conservative. When we talk about sex, when we talk about reproductive health, we still think very one way, that there's heteronormality, and then homosexuality is a little bit, there are many of them here, but can they actually be themselves is another issue. So, and also I think in Mauritius we have very traditional gender roles, which heavily impacts on how you own your right to sexual and reproductive health. So I think, being here, there's definitely issues that need to be tackled. There's definitely a lot of improvement that has happened over the years, whether it is in terms of the services provided by our public health facilities, but we still have a lot of mindset changes that need to happen for us to be fully healthy and safe in our sexual and reproductive health.
To make us a little bit more empowered in how we claim the rights that we are entitled to.
Exactly.
Okay. And well, actually, to get into this, how would you advise us to maintain a good sexual and reproductive health?
Tricky question. Well, I think it is an integral part of our just general health. It's just a very specific aspect of it. And I think to maintain a good sexual and reproductive health, one must first understand what it means for one's body, for our well-being. It is a crucial, and I think this is a crucial part of maintaining it. I think we need to understand that sexual and reproductive health really affects us throughout our lifetime. It's not just when you are, like I said earlier, that you're young that you need to protect yourself to prevent issues that you're going to have later, but throughout our lifetime, our body is changing and our needs are changing. As a woman, for example, when you start, as a young girl, when you start having a period to the moment that you're bearing a child, to post childbirth, these impacts the way that your body is functioning and the changes that are happening, and we need to be able to understand what that is, what are these changes, and how to have these different stages of life, what are the specific care that need to be, or the specific services that you need to access to respond to these different needs. And I think we also need to be able to understand the linkages, for example, between adolescence and youth, and both the earlier and later stages of life, that, like I said, the needs of women as they bear the children, but also the needs of all of us as our body change and age, because it's not because we're old or because I'm talking mostly from a women's perspective because I'm here, but it's not because you went through menopause that means like I'm not having my period anymore, that I don't have any more issues, or I don't need to take care of my body as much as I did before. It's the same, it's just a different set of issues that come up, and we still need to make sure that, for example, breast cancer screening, cervical cancer screening, all these things need to be really understood first for you to be able to take care of yourself. And yeah, so I think good sexual and reproductive health is really a question of knowing what your body needs, what your body wants, and to care for it in that way at all stages of life, whether it is in a preventive way, or do we say preventative? Oh, sorry, preventative or curative way. Yeah. So yeah.
Okay. So what I understood is we need to educate ourselves in a way on basically sexual and reproductive health, what it is, what it means to us.
Yeah.
And kind of find ways that will adapt to our lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly. How you would, for example, the choice of the contraception method that you would be choosing, if you want to have children, if you don't want to have children, what impact, but that doesn't mean that you won't be going for breast cancer screening, because it still is something that you anatomically, biologically need to do as a woman. But men also should take care of their health, because they are active partners in a sexual relationship. They also have STI, they also get STIs, they are also, they can also transmit all these. So it's a responsibility for everyone to know what it means and what is their role in maintaining it for themselves.
If you were to give us a tip on how do we go about educating ourselves, where do we reach out to kind of get that background, that education on sexual and reproductive health? What kind of...
Precious, where did you learn about it? I'm putting Precious under the...
I see.
No, but it's got to, and then I can confirm maybe.
I learned by having conversations with someone who knows about sexual and reproductive health. Hashtag Priscilla. I just kept on asking her so many questions about things which I didn't understand. And also, I was also given the opportunity to talk to people from like the Ministry of Youth, Ministry of Health, who also would give me some tips and points on, how to live a healthier life, sexual life. And with the things which I learned, I now have the ability to see what's false, like false information on the media, and which is actually true and factual. So,
yeah. So to complement what Precious is saying, I think accessing the right kind of information is important, because there's It's either we have a lack of information or an overload of misinformation. And now in this digital age, you can access anything anywhere. Google is your doctor,
TikTok.
Google is your encyclopedia. You can TikTok is your teacher. So there are so many things out there, and it can get confusing for many of us, not just young people, but also adults, to understand like, but what is the right information? I would say stick to what is legitimate. So I want to say, for example, go to UNFPA's webpage. You will have lots of information that is tailored in ways that is really accessible to young people, to women. There are YouTube videos. There are panel discussions, fact sheets. You can access all these on UNFPA's website, but not just only us. There's also all some part of it on UN Women. You can also get information from WHO. But something that we don't do a lot here, even us Mauritian, is at our own public health facilities. We have people there who know their job, who know about sexual and reproductive health. We have community care workers, I think they're called, workers or officers that are there, that are in the communities who are doing their work. There are lots of NGOs who are working in the area. At school, for example, there are not peer, like I think we used to call it peer, but let's say courses or like time periods where they give comprehensive sexuality education. These are key, basic areas of information that not everyone really harnesses and that we don't know exist. There is a question again about like the type of information that is conveyed, and I think it's also important for each and everyone to know, to be able to critically think about the type of information they're receiving. It's not because Precious told me that I think that Precious is right. I also need to do my homework and go, check things up, and be able to make this distinction between what is real out there and what is not real out there. But really, in between yourselves, I think young people, they can learn so much from each other if they know how to take the subject on, if they know how to talk about the issue. And I think maybe one of the things that is hard to do for young people is to have conversations about sexual and reproductive health that is not on the derogatory side or the vulgar side, or really talking factually about things, and not having like judgment, not being judgmental about each other and the way that they behave and the choices that each and every one of their peers make in this area.
Very true.
Okay, thank you for that. And if you talked about services that's present here in Mauritius, which ones are they that they can reach out to? I think you mentioned NGOs as well. Do you have a few NGOs that people can reach out to if they want to maybe access information?
There's a few depending on like what you want to know. For example, if pills works a lot, pills works a lot on the HIV side, but also I think anything related to homosexuality, non-heteronormativity. They really have a lot of information that is really accessible. There is Collectif Droit Humain, that is a collection of different NGOs that talk about, that includes like the Queer Alliance. And I think these are all areas that they are very open, and it's very easy to have conversation with them. They include gender, they talk about gender issues, human rights. So I think these are all areas where we can go to ask for this type of information. At a more institutional level, you can find this information, like I said, at like any hospital that you go to, but also community centers. I think we call them dispensaires, dispensaries. You can ask about these things too.
Okay, I'll make sure to actually share the link to the website of the UNFPA and a few of the other resources I was doing this as well.
Yeah.
If they do want to learn more about the topic and actually access legit information,
Yeah.
so we'll do that. Okay.
Thank you.
Do you think there are barriers currently making it hard for our young people to access healthy sexual and reproductive health?
Yeah, I think there are a few. Maybe again, I'm precious. I think as a young person, she can speak of the challenges that she's faced, maybe in accessing these type of services, and what you think are the barriers.
Okay, the first one is fear.
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 Huh.
Because as it's a very sensitive topic, and it's something people don't really want. Okay, as a young person, and as me, myself, and I, it's something most young people are not comfortable touching. It's not something most of us want to confront, or like go about knowing, because it's like, okay, there are contraceptives out there, but most people feel uncomfortable going to a hospital and being like, okay, give me the contraceptives. Or like, where do we go?
Which is free, by the way.
Which is free. On top of it, it's free in Mauritius.
in hospitals and community centers.
Public hospitals and community centers in Mauritius. But it's there's like, number one, there's even a lack of information. Like, most people don't know that you can enter a public hospital and ask for these things. Most of us are not comfortable asking for these things because you don't want someone to judge you and be like, what are you doing? Why are you asking for these things? Because we have grown up with that stigma that you don't talk about sex or sexual health or reproductive health. It's something we rather keep to ourselves and figure it out on our own.
Yeah. So based on what like Precious is saying, I think access to sexual and reproductive health and rights. We often forget about the rights, actually. We always talk about health, sexual and reproductive health, but there's a huge component of rights when we talk about sexual and reproductive health. I think it is extremely crucial for young people because it provides them with the medical care and also comprehensive sexuality education. Like I said, it's really learning about what your body is, how it functions, about consent, about the choices that you have, like you say, about contraceptive methods. And I think all these things are important for young people because it gives them vital information about their sexualities, about their sensuality, gender identities, and their gender expression. And I think at the end of it, it really allows them bodily autonomy and power over their own lives. So talking about barriers, I think there are a number of issues that mold the decisions that adolescent and youth make when it comes to sexual and reproductive health, for example. So of these are like social and cultural and religious factors sway the choices, and the same like the availability of information, the awareness, the empowerment, and the access to services. All these influence the way that a young person would make a decision about how they want to live their sexual and reproductive life. So very young adolescents, and I'm talking about individuals between the age of 10 and 14, are primarily influenced by their parents or their caregivers. And older adolescents, which are 15 to 19, but also young adults, are often influenced by their peers or by the media. So really what you consume kind of like tells you how you need to be behaving on top of all the social expectations, the gender expectations. So yeah, I think this access to information is a key barrier in Mauritius, I would just say, but not just that. It's like almost everywhere in the world, the access to the right information at the right time. Yeah. So yeah, and here in Mauritius, like I said, we have this added layer of cultural sensitivity and shyness to talk about those issues with our parents and doctors. But like also, as I mentioned earlier, we do so very readily with our peers but in a very crude way, in a very derogatory way.
True.
And because in our minds, talking about this, and this I think only strengthens what Precious was saying, it is, private, it is gross, it is dirty. And then talking, I mean, I haven't heard many young people talking about the health of their vagina and penises outside. And I think this is, this already is an indication of that we don't really have this conversation, and it impacts the way we access the services. It impacts the way we look for sexual and reproductive health products like condoms, pills. So yeah, and generally, I think there's a misconception and misunderstanding that talking about sexual and reproductive health opens the gate to irresponsible behaviors or early emancipation, when in fact, evidence does show that if you have more, an informed individual has more agency and then can make better life choices, including in their sexual and reproductive choices.
True, that last one is definitely a common misconception that we make. And hopefully we're working on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's healthy to talk about
True.
your body.
Very true.
With your partner or your friend.
Completely.
You mentioned earlier rights, and you're right, we didn't talk about this today. We did put the focus on health. So if you were to give us briefly, what are actually the rights of young people or people in general concerning sexual and reproductive health?
Okay. So I don't think it's so much about like what are those rights, but really the concept of owning your right to health, owning your right to information. Like we are all entitled to health. We're all entitled to accessing information. And I think when we talk about right, this whole idea, not idea, but it involves agency, it involves having agency, being able to make a choice, and at the bottom of it is being knowledgeable and aware of what is out there. Because for you to be able to say it's my right, you need to have a good foundation and understanding of what is this, what does this entail you to have this right. So it's hard to say in a nutshell what it means to have rights, but I would really underline that underline the agency part and the choice part, because they are components of how you own your rights to something, right? Being able to say, I know, and that's okay.
Yeah, and I think it also relates to consent and knowing
Yes.
that you are allowed to say no
Yes.
or yes to things.
A voice, having a voice. Yes, a lot of one of the things that maybe that I have observed, and it's my own observation, is that our young people are often very insecure in their relationships, and many. I'm not saying it only applies to girls. There are boys that are also victims of it, but primarily girls. Like they mistake the fact that their boyfriend tells them that because I love you, we need to have sex. And I think it's completely unrealistic, because if like that girl should know that she can say no when she wants, and it's not her boyfriend that can decide for her whether it's time for them to have sex, where to have sex. And again, you might have said yes 10 minutes ago, but the moment you say no, no is a no. And that's also the part of owning your right to that.
Exactly. And okay, so we are speaking about boys, girls, different genders. Do you think there's a relationship between sexual and reproductive health and gender equality?
Most definitely. Yeah, Precious agree. But yes, most definitely, because reproductive health concerns, and this includes HIV and AIDS, they are a leading cause of death and illness among women worldwide. And I'm talking about women between the age of 15 and 44. And also because reproductive health problems are borne disproportionately by women, it is an issue of gender, of inequality, and of human rights. So more precisely, for example, we can take family planning. So family planning is really at the foundation of sexual and reproductive health and rights, and it has multiplier effects that ripple across education, skills, and work. It is about gender equality, health, and so much more. So for all individuals, whether they want to plan their family or they simply want to protect their reproductive health, access to contraception is critical to their ability to fulfill their aspirations and potential. So yeah, definitely gender equality is quite big here. And in Mauritius, the woman still bears the brunt, of the domestic chores, of parenthood, and now because it is also expected of her to be empowered and to work. And then she finds herself at a crossroad where oftentimes she has to make a decision between pursuing a career and having this decision to pursue a career dwarfed by, expectations, societal or family expectations of her bearing children, of bringing up these children with little to say on how these decisions are made for her. And so knowing her rights and knowing she has choices about whether and when she wants to bear a child, the spacing between her children, and if she even wants to have more than one child, not children, one child, and the availability of the range of contraceptives that can support her decision and choice. So this is, to me, this is a sexually and reproductively empowered woman, knowing what is out there to me, all those decisions that I can make that can help me fulfill my role as fulfill myself. I'm not saying my role as a woman because that's the role of a woman is like it's outdated. Yeah, we can have so many, but fulfill myself, fulfill like what is it that I want. And additionally, again, we come back to the lack of information. There's a general lack of understanding and knowledge about the whole reproductive process, and it is quite shocking because women sometimes do not have any clue, or some would say that they actually do not need to know about prenatal or postnatal care because family will take care of them because that's how their own mothers did it. So why bother knowing? And what they don't realize is that it is putting their health at risk, and not only theirs, but also the baby that they are carrying or the baby that they're going to have. And if we continue talking about this gender equality issue and how sexual and reproductive health is key for achieving gender equality, I think we can talk about a woman feeling safe during birth giving, being in control because she understands the medical consequences of having or not having a planned or emergency C-section, because she understands what impact it can have after. And being able to tell your gynecologist, for example, that you don't want more children or that you want 4 more children, it doesn't really matter, but just embodying this right to voice out what it means for you is already a big step towards gender equality, right?
Yeah. Would you say that in terms of that discussion, there's a whole debate, right, on gender equality, but would you say it's for gender equity when it comes to sexual and reproductive health? Because technically, male or like different genders have different needs when it comes to sexual and reproductive health, and women sometimes would be pictured as having more needs when it comes to this because we do have more how do I put it?
Biologically,
biologically, right? We're predisposed to be needing it a bit more.
Yeah.
So
it's the question of gender equity, I think, is an interesting one. I think, yes, biologically women are predisposed, like reproduction. When we talk about reproduction, it's always the woman that comes in the mind. But if we take it like from the perspective of family planning, it is a decision that needs to be taken by both. right? Like, I don't want to have more children, and my husband, for example, wants to have more children. That, I mean, we're we're in a tight spot because you want, I don't, who does what, right? It's easy to say because you don't want, you go. But reverse the role. If it was him who didn't want children and I still wanted, would he have gone for a vasectomy? No, because all these issues, there would have been talks about virility and, you know, pain and not feeling whatever in the genital. I'm like, dude, you know, if you don't want to have children, it should be your decision to do something about it. But it could also be a joint decision, right? Where I decide to, I don't know, how was the word? Not compensate.
Compromise.
Compromise. You can compromise on things, and maybe we take more care in the type of contraception that we're using. That if I take the pill, you also wear a condom. You know, there's like equity. I think is I don't think it's difficult to achieve when you talk about sexual and reproductive health, but it does require a lot of conversation and sometimes a lot of difficult conversations because we're talking about split responsibilities, joint responsibilities, and whatnot. So yeah.
Okay. So a lot of what the UNFPA does involves empowering young people to be leaders and sharing what they've learned, you know, even if after hearing this, for example, and to be able to share that. So if we were to encourage our students, our listeners today, to engage in actions that can make them help them make a change in their communities, with their friends, their peers, in their homes even. So what would be the advice that you would give them, the starting point maybe of what to do next?
Yeah. I would say, again, it might sound oversimplistic, but I do believe that staying informed about the issues and sharing what you've learned with others makes a big difference. I would add on to that and say, expand your horizons. You, as a heterosexual boy, what does it mean to what does it feel like to be in the shoes of a homosexual person? You know, like, have these conversations, be bold and be honest and say, I don't know about this, I'm keen to learn more. What you can be, I think, humble about your lack of understanding, lack of knowledge about it. Last time I think Precious came to me and asked me about what was it?
Transgender.
Yeah,
transgenderism.
and I think these are the types of conversation that young people should be having. You know, like, it's not just about A and B. We're talking about gender identities, sexual identities. There's a range. Inform yourself about these things and acknowledge that, you know, you can be A, another person is B, and it doesn't matter in the end because you each have your own right to live in your sexual and gender identity how you want it to be. Right? So I think staying informed and making sure that whichever information that you're getting is legitimate, appropriate, factually correct, and non-judgment. Right? And don't fall into the trap of learning from TikToks.
Yes.
They are very good. Like you mentioned in your NGO, there's an Instagram account of a lady that I think she conveys really good information about sexual and reproductive health. And her, how do you call it, handle?
The handle, yeah,
Is
Instagram
at
handle.
Cause Carol, and I think she does it in Creole, and it's amazing what she does. Loads of information, really accessible. She can answer a lot of the questions. So if you feel more comfortable looking for things up in Creole or whether in English, find a medium that
gives you the information.
Yeah, exactly. And also, I would tell young people to find people whom they can trust to ask this question, right? If you feel that in your own, for example, family or in your immediate surrounding, it's hard to have this conversation, there's always, I think your office already is a place where they can go to and they can feel safe to ask this information. Again, UNFPA website for information. And finally, I would say if they want to make a change, if they want to really do something about it, the young people should really uphold their right to health, so that they can make informed choices about their body. They need to respect their body, take care of their body, and know that they have a voice in these things, and they can use it.
Thank you, Priscilla. Well, we've reached the end of our session today, and if you were to leave us on a few words, what would those be?
Like politically correct.
Politically correct.
Okay, then well, thank you first of all for having us. I think that was a really good discussion that we've had, and I'm glad that we're having this discussion. I would really like to have more people, to hear more people engaging in these type of conversations. And as you rightly said from the start, talking about some of these issues is the first step to breaking the taboos around sexual and reproductive health. So it is always a pleasure for us to share this information. And to our listeners here, I would say, yeah, go out there, ask questions, inform yourself, and just do you respect others, right?
Yes.
So remember that, like, it's each and everyone's choice to be who they are. So don't be judgmental about that, and really encourage each other to be more open about these issues.
And to live healthy lives.
Yes. Be safe.
And having empathy as well. Like
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Empathy is important. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's
awesome. Thank you. I've learned so much during this session, and I'm sure it will also be a starting point for me to actually get to learn more and go and research and have better information, so that again I can uphold, like you said as well, and share this information with the students whenever they would need it, and if they reach out as well. So thank you both. It was awesome to talk to you. I do hope that we'll have more conversations and have you guys on board as well to help us discuss and delve into this a bit deeper. Today was an introduction around the subject, so hopefully we'll have deeper conversations around it, and maybe students can join us with their own questions that the UNFPA will be able to answer.
Yeah, that would
be interesting.
Yeah. Well, thank you again.
Thank you
so
so
much for
much.
having us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Happy listening to everyone.
Yes, absolutely. Bye.